Feel like winter here in Calgary. Ice
Hmm.
fog today, which is kind of fun. Uh, we've got five whiskeys to work through tonight. I only know what they are because I needed to put together the poll, and I asked Evan for the order a few moments ago, which is not to say I don't know what's in the full set of tastings, but we set the order, had these things poured, started pouring them well over 6 weeks ago. I've long since forgotten what is in each spot, and even though I know he puts a lot of work into it and people really enjoy them, much like Evan, I find myself fairly busy and I have not even had a chance to glance at the blogs. And Natalia's social media posts, I just reshare them and move on. And some great photos that she's posting, of course. But
Yeah,
this will somewhat be a surprise for me tonight, too, which is kind of fun.
right on. Well, should we just get to it and
I think we
dive into number
should.
one?
Now, I'm sure most of you have opened your box. I haven't. So I'm going to do my little unboxing with all of you. Open my first window here. Obviously, you've got the glass and the little notes and the first bottle, which you probably already know this because I'm guessing most of you have peeked by now, but we're starting off with Scotch Malt Whisky Society 1.300 Mistletoe and Whiskey, which is a special release brought in specifically for our Advent tastings. It's exclusively from Kensington Wine Market. None of the other society partner shops in Canada have this one. It is truly a one-off, just for Christmas. We launched it Monday, and on the 1st of December, and a good chunk of the bottles are sold. In fact, after today, I think we're down to about a dozen that can be pre-ordered for next week. So it's been a hot commodity. And Evan, might that have something to do with the distillery this is from, and not just the sexy label?
Yeah, I think it does. I think there's a few things working for it. One is so you guys, Scotch Malt Whiskey Society members might remember last year, we got a series of bottles that were labeled SMWS after the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. One was done for, there was a Kalila that was bottled for Halloween. Was it the Liquid was Christmas, a Noctu for New Year's, and then another one for Robbie Burns Day. That's escaping my memory. But we didn't get the entire SMWS range this year, and none of them were going to come in. And then we were looking for something for the calendar, and Kelly and Rob mentioned this bottling, Mistletoe and Whiskey. And the fact that it was from distillery number one made it really enticing. That is Glenfarclas Distillery. And then the fact that it's 1.300 is pretty cool too. There are actually, I think, five different casks with the same name of mistletoe and whiskey, labeled 1.296 to 1.301. The one we got happened to be the 300th cask. Each one has slightly different tasting notes, of course, because they do the tasting notes for each individual cask. This one is a 13-year-old Glenfarclas, spent 10 years in an ex-bourbon barrel before being transferred into a first fill PX hogshead. 57.7% alcohol. And part of the reason it's been selling as well is that it's a fantastic bottle. I think there are a few calendar people that have already picked up a bottle themselves.
So yeah, ex-bourbon finished in PX sherry from distillery number one, the Scotch Malt Whisky Society's first ever distillery that they bottled way back when. What is it now? 41 years ago, I believe they got started.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's about right.
You know, this has got to, and I don't want to get the cart ahead of the horse or spoil any surprises, but this has a bit of a Billy Walker vibe to it on the nose.
Oh, it for sure does. Like it's kind of almost like a Glenfarclas meets Glendronach or GlenAllachie for me, where it's a more dense style of Glenfarclas thanks to that PX. Usually the family casts that we get, especially which tend to be fantastic,
Hmm.
tend to have this real sort of like black tea-like quality. This is
Hmm.
just full on jammy and rich.
Well, I think the ex-bourbon that this started out in must have been a very active cask because I
Yeah.
think what it's reminded me of is in a lot of the GlenAllachie releases, like the 10-year-olds, the cask strength, even the 18s, some of the 21s, in addition to using PX and Oloroso sherry, you'll also see like virgin oak creep into a lot of his bottlings. And to me, it's that really creamy, almost buttery, toasty note that's
Yeah.
creeping in on the nose.
Yeah, it does have a lot of that buttery toast. A lot of the typical like Christmas cake, fruit cake notes in there as well. Um, Maybe a touch savory, like not heavily savory, but going into nutty notes for me.
Hmm. Quite nutty. I
Yeah,
mean, there's an interesting thing here. Like this has almost got a bit of a rye vibe to it. Like it's
good
really
call.
decadent, spicy, oily. It
Yeah, a little
reminds
bit
me of like
herbaceous.
aged rye whiskey.
Hmm.
It's a bit of a
Yeah, I can see where you're
chameleon.
going with that. Even a little bit of like a molasses or molasses driven like pumpernickel bread note on the
Mhm.
nose. Yeah, I think this is a fantastic dram. Not necessarily again showing like your typical Glenfarclas all the way through, but
No.
just a really nicely sherried whiskey.
Well, and I think that this ticks a couple of boxes. If you're somebody who likes kind of those gooey sherry bombs, this is probably going to appeal to you. Uh, and I just think it's interesting. I mean, I'll be honest, I get a little tired of the overdone goopy sherry finishes. I think some of them are not as well
Hmm.
executed as others, but this seems to work really well. Glenfarclas being a whiskey that's fairly heavy and oily to begin with, partly because of the big stills it's made in, but also the direct fire that they use that creates that Maillard reaction in them. Um, it just seems to pair so well with sherry. And it's always fun to see Glenfarclas in ex-bourbon, but you almost
Yeah.
always feel like there's something missing. Maybe at older ages when it starts to get really tropical, it works. But I find
Mhm.
young Glenfarclas ex-bourbon, it's just not the best pairing most of the time.
No, I agree. It's tends to be like a weighty spirit that is built for sherry
Mhm.
in many cases.
Now, Evan, you wrote a blog post about Glenfarclas. You've probably written about them a couple times.
Yeah.
Probably almost found it difficult to keep it fresh. Uh, Anything new you learned about them this year?
No, so what I've tended to do, especially with these calendar posts, is I tend to go off on tangents a hell of a lot more
Mm,
as times goes on. Otherwise, I am just copying and pasting old blog posts at this point because we've covered a lot of ground in the even in the what 6 or 7 years that I've been doing most of the writing for them.
mhm,
Glenn Farquhar has definitely been in there quite a bit. Scotch Malt Whisky Society has definitely been in there quite a bit. So I get into a little bit more conjecture on things and often just bring up Lecheg out of nowhere, like just for something to do.
mhm. So how would Locheg have crept into a blog post about Glenfarclas, or did it?
Well, I mean, you have to mention how the society numbering system works, and then, of course, if you're going to mention that Glenn Farquhar is number one, it's obvious that next you'll mention 42 is Tobermory, and you just go from there.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that I can see the direct connection there.
Yeah.
We should add for anyone who this might be your first time, uh, either joining us for one of our whiskey advent tastings or for a virtual tasting period. We encourage you to add any comments, tasting notes, questions you have in the chat. We'll do our best to
Mhm.
keep an eye on them and answer them as they come up. Um, and yeah, hope you're enjoying the whiskeys as we go here. And don't mind Jeff. Yeah, I don't think there's a filter on his keyboard. There's just never-ending
Yeah.
comments that come out of it.
Yeah, it's Jeff, I'm far too egotistical to use AI to for my writing at this point.
Mm,
I'm in love with my own words.
yeah, exactly. Shall we move on to day number two,
Yeah, let's.
door number two? Now,
Yeah.
for those of you who play along with us, you'll know we like to go through everything twice. So it's kind of handy to have an extra, well, four glasses so that you can have one for each whiskey.
Yeah.
Uh, but day two here, cracking the window. I did sort of tease into this, and I don't think I was trying to suggest or lead people on, but that Glenfarclas, if I were in a blind tasting, I might have guessed that it was GlenAllachie. And
Yep,
oh man, this one's on pretty snug tonight.
yep.
Uh,
This might have been when Marty was back at the shop working on
oh,
stuff.
Marty's too
He's got
strong.
the arms for it.
Yeah, despite being a decade older than me, he's much stronger. I'm really fighting this one. I wonder if anyone else had a hard time getting these off.
I am currently.
I kind of feel like I'm gonna have to go upstairs and get a pair of like, I don't know, plumbers, like a vice grip. Good God. Wow. This is kind
Yeah,
of a fail, Evan, on our part.
I'm gonna have to get my children to become teenagers so that I can pass this on to them to open up at some point.
Oh God. Yeah, there's like no moving it. I'm gonna have to go get a pair of tools of some kind. Entertain the folk, Evan. This is
Absolutely. So this is the GlenAllachie 15 if we ever get it open for the next one here. And this honestly is it might be the only weak spot in the calendar, at least the only one that I can think of right now. We talked about how we wanted to do the Scotch Malt Whisky Society bottle to starting at Big Sherry and then going into something else that's Big Sherry is going to be tough. This one is Doug, if you can send those channel locks my way, that would be super helpful. But this GlenAllachie is going to be hard to put up side by side with the SMWS 1.300 because they are both Big Sherry. The GlenAllachie 15 has some PX in it as well as Oloroso, if I remember correctly, and it's dropped down to 46% alcohol when we get to it. But it is still a fantastic whiskey. This is the second time we've had it in a calendar. We had it back in the 2020 uh, KWM whiskey calendar, if I remember correctly, as well, back when we were actually still using mini bottles and not pouring our own like we do now. And that was a fun one to get in there because we were able to get the mini bottles specifically sent just for that calendar. And the 15 was brand spanking new for the most part then too, and showed really well. From doing tasting notes on that one, looking back at it, and then doing these ones, I think the whiskey has been fairly consistent over the last 5 years as well. This GlenAllachie 15 hasn't changed too much stylistically versus that previous bottle 5 years ago, which is nice to see. So GlenAllachie Distillery, it is owned by Billy Walker and company. Billy Walker famously purchased Ben Riach and revived it, and then purchased GlenDronach and revived it with a previous company he was in charge of. Um, they also then purchased Glenglassaugh Distillery and revived that. So when those were sold off around 2016, they were sold to Brown-Forman, the owners of Jack Daniel's, Woodford Reserve, et cetera, et cetera. And then when he had nothing to do after those ones, instead of retiring, he decided to purchase another distillery, which was GlenAllachie.
well, I couldn't find the vice grips that I was looking for, which I thought would probably be the easiest tool to open this thing up. But
Yeah,
I panicked and put it under hot water for a minute and it's now open. But
nice.
yeah, man, these lids, like maybe we don't need to tighten them quite as much.
Perhaps.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Again, I have to pause now and try and crack mine open.
oh,
So
yours is still
yeah,
sealed, is it? I recommend the hot water, man. I think it's probably
yeah,
the fastest
I'll do that. Be
solution.
right back.
So while Evan's doing that, I'm going to dive in on this. I know he was talking about Billy Walker and his journey to GlenAllachie Distillery. I'm going to put the whiskey up on the screen. Hopefully, he hasn't done that yet because that would be a bit repetitive. But this is, I think, an interesting bottling because I think it's become the flagship bottling for the distillery, much in the way that GlenDronach 15 was at the GlenDronach Distillery. And when we were talking about that Scotch Malt Whisky Society bottling just a few minutes ago, one of the things you'll notice I talked about how it had this note that was reminiscent of virgin oak. And when you look at the recipe for GlenAllachie bottlings, a lot of them, They consist of bourbon, sherry casks, and then they're often finishing some of these in PX and Oloroso sherry. Now, I'm not sure how old our description is on here, but one of the things Billy Walker has started doing is incorporating a touch of virgin oak and also wine casks in addition to PX and Oloroso. But Evan, are you finally open? Have you released the
Yes,
beast?
I have. So I didn't try the sample the first time through. We had a bottle open at work, so of the same release. So I was saying that I don't think, honestly, that this one has changed much from the first time through. It's maybe got a few different casts, but the style has remained pretty consistent from 5 years ago when we had it in our calendar. What has changed quite a bit is their 12-year-old. The 12-year-old I
Mhm.
remember was just it was all right when it was first released back in 2018 or so. But it's gotten a lot darker and a lot more sherried, and we have a
Mhm.
lot more customers looking for that 12 now as it has gotten darker as well.
Well, last year it won the 12 won World's Best Single Malt in the
Yep.
World Whiskeys Awards. I mean, occasionally there's some weird things that win those awards. So, I take awards like that with a little bit of a grain of salt. But yeah, I think with this release, you're right. It's been somewhat consistent. I think it has gotten darker, but it's gotten darker in a soft way as opposed to in a spicier, more tannic way.
Yeah.
I kind of
Yeah.
feel like it's getting a little fudgier and a little bit more syrupy and it's less kind
Hmm.
of spicy and oaky than it was
Yeah.
previously.
Yeah. One of the things that's jumped out at me all the time with the 15 since the 2020 release even or those early releases has and Zach says Mexican coffee and cinnamon. I tend to get a pretty big espresso note
Yeah.
on the GlenAllachie 15, which I quite enjoy.
I like that Mexican coffee note. Typically a lot of spices, a bit of cocoa or actually chocolate often mixed into that. So that's a fun note. I'm
Hmm.
not sure it's something I could drink on the reg. I know I tried it when we were down in Mexico City this year. Um, but onto the whiskey, I think this is showing really well.
Yeah.
It's frankly drinking better than Glendronach 15 has been for years. I
Yep.
don't think the Brown Forman takeover has done wonders for that brand or the quality of the spirit they're putting out. And I think Billy has succeeded in essentially, on one hand, recreating some of the magic that he had at Glendronach, but possibly with some of these younger releases, actually improving on them.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely just a machine when it comes to re-racking and finding the right cask for the whiskey.
Mhm. Um, Interestingly, we are looking at a Kensington cask of GlenAllachie, which will be our second, possibly
Yep.
coming 6, 7 months time, 11-year-old, uh, quite sherried, similar to this, but I think more concentrated and more intense. And yeah, that'll be something fun to see coming down the pipes next year at some point in time. But Evan, have we got anything else to say about the GlenAllachie 15 or fears about how hard it might be to open some of the remaining bottles tonight in the tasting?
I think they do become a little bit easier, hopefully. I did open the next one, if I remember correctly, so that one shouldn't be too hard. I didn't struggle with that one as much.
Yeah.
But yeah, not much more to say with GlenAllachie beyond one of the threads that's been going through these early posts has been way too much talk about Pernod Ricard, uh,
Mm.
uh, which I tend to talk to about ad nauseum anyways, and then quite a bit of talk about the Pattison crash this time around as
Wow.
well. Um, GlenAllachie didn't really factor into that because it wasn't around until the 60s, but a lot of the other distilleries that we are getting into or have had already did factor in on that.
Mhm.
Let's go on to
All right.
number
Well, I've
three.
cracked open window number 3 up here, and I've found a 2000 vintage Scapa from Gord MacPhail Connoisseurs Choice line. And oh, yeah, that's how you want them to open
Yep.
relatively painlessly, which is a good sign. Uh,
Hmm.
I did see a comment there or a question there from someone asking, was I referring to the old GlenDronach 15 revival or the new GlenDronach 15? To be honest, I would say anything bottled in the last 5, 6 years on the GlenDronach front has not been mind blowing. And I think part of it is with
Lack of old
Brown-Forman taking
stock.
over, they just
Yeah.
tried to grow the brand much bigger than the stocks could support. So the quality of sherry cask that they were bottling, I think, has gone down. And I think there is some argument out there, just to finish on this before we move on to Scapa, which interestingly, Billy wanted to buy Scapa.
Yeah.
Uh, and this is a nice little segue from GlenAllachie. And the folks at Chivas were like, well, no, we're not going to sell you Scapa, but would you be interested in GlenAllachie? Just finishing the thought I had there is a theory out there in some whiskey nerddom that Billy Walker left the cupboard fairly bare when he left
Yeah.
GlenDronach, which is to say, in the lead up to selling the distillery, they bottled off a lot of the crown jewels. And it's hard to know whether that's true or not, or whether it's just not being managed as well now as it was back then. Um, but the bottlings coming out of there have not been as exciting as they were while Billy was still in charge, I think is fair to say.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did mention the Scapa thing on the Scapa calendar. And Scapa, honestly, one, I don't think we bottled or had a Scapa in our calendar up until now. I think this
Mhm.
is the first one ever in our 12 plus years of doing this.
Yeah,
Um,
it might be.
and I haven't had about a lot of Scapa myself. It's finding indie Scapa is kind of like hen's teeth in a lot of ways. I think the only ones I've really seen have been from Gordon and MacPhail.
Yeah, there's mostly been Gordon MacPhail, but again, because they filled their own
Yeah.
casks. Adelphi bottled a number of Scappas under
Hmm.
I think there were some Scappas under one of their
Like
whiskey,
Fascadale or yeah.
yeah, like Lawdale, Fascadale, one of those dales that they
Hmm.
used as a series for bottlings. The other place that we've seen it is Mystery Orkney malts. We have seen a couple
Yes.
Mystery Orkney malts that are Scapa, but the reality is Scapa hasn't produced much.
No.
Uh, and when it did produce, Gordon MacPhail was a ready buyer. Like all you have to do is look at their inventory to know that they've had a good relationship with Chivas Brothers, frankly, really up until present, continuing to fill makes that maybe other companies wouldn't get. But Evan, there's an interesting note about this whiskey, and I don't know if you remember this, but we were
Yeah.
actually considering bringing this in as a Kensington cask. And I was just concerned that at the price that it was being offered, it would be hard for us to take a whole cask of it, partly because no one really knew what Scapa was, and it just wasn't really exciting enough. But James managed to use that feedback to bring it in for the market, and he got the price down about $50. So I think it all
Mhm.
worked out for everybody in the end. But this was a cask that I really, really, really wanted to bottle. And in the end, just said, I don't think we can make it work.
Yeah. And it's fantastic. Like this would have been a great KWM cask. I am happy that it all came to Canada regardless. It's just, again, don't know, have a lot to go on with Scapa personally, but like honeyed and soft, waxy, a little bit salty. It's just a fantastic dram.
Mhm. I had a bit of like a dental, I don't know, dental office note to begin with. Maybe it was a little bit of like a fluoride kind
Yeah.
of chalky, dusty note to it. There's a nice maple, almost like a maple bacon note on the nose.
Mhm. Yeah, and what was it? The Delisles say pepper steak with honey. That's a nice note to get that those almost peppercorn notes in there as well.
Evan, did you share your screen for this one?
No, no, I will though.
Oh, I can pop it up. I've got it here.
Yeah, feel free. Yeah.
Yeah, 24-year-old refill sherry hogshead, bottled for Canada, effectively. But by Canada, they mean in this situation, I believe Alberta, BC, and maybe a drib or a drab of it goes to Saskatchewan, gets cross-shipped out there. But we don't see, as Evan said, a lot of Scapa. We see very little old Scapa. Uh, Certainly, we don't see the distillery bottling 24-year-old Scapa in the current environment.
No.
They've got a bunch of no age statement whiskeys that come around from time to time.
Yeah, which is also too bad. They used to have, I think, a 16-year-old on the market, although it wasn't long-lived.
Hmm. So, Evan, what are you getting with this one?
So it definitely a lot of waxiness. I get that pepperiness that the Delisles were talking about. Lots of honeycomb and even like a really fresh kelp note on the nose as well to go with those like really clean coastal notes. It's not the big iodine-y sort of seaweed note though. Lots of salted toffee and apple notes on the palate as well.
Yeah, I'd say for me, salted caramel, some nice dried dark fruits,
Yeah.
candied fruits as well. It's almost on the verge of going a little tropical, but it's not quite there. The sherry is I would say leaning more in that old school, delicate, subtle
Yeah.
style as opposed to that spicier, more tannic, more leathery, more earthy profile.
Mm.
I'm all, I'm
Yeah,
also
it's so well rounded, this one.
Mhm. I'm also a little sad because I'm shocked that I haven't written a tasting note for this one yet.
Mhm.
We've had it for a while now, and we've put this in at least one tasting over the course
Yeah.
of the last year or so.
You should write it up as sort of the one that got away.
There's a lot of things we should be writing up though, Evan, and much
Yeah,
as with the
absolutely.
other Advent stuff, time is not on our side.
Mhm. So they're in writing up about Scapa. Of course, I did have to talk about Pernod Ricard and its purchase of it and ownership. But there are two other Orkney distilleries that have or are close to having whiskey. One is called Kimblin Distillery, and the other one is called Deerness Distillery. Neither of which we've seen over in Canada yet.
Well, it begs the question then, how long will it be until the Orkneys are considered a region?
I know, like, but they should be once that fourth distillery, that third distillery gets whiskey at this point.
Yeah. But here's an even better question. Should they just get rid of regions altogether? Because
Yes.
relatively speaking, they're meaningless.
Mhm.
Um, like Lag is a lowland distillery, and yet it's heavily peated
It's
and
laughable.
coastal.
Yep.
And it's always bothered me that like the various islands don't get to be a region, like just the islands.
Yep.
Um, which is why, if you'll notice on our website, we actually have a region listed there as islands,
Yep.
because I think it's ludicrous that Highlands is four-fifths of the bloody country, and there is no style that pertains to that geography anymore, if there ever frankly was. But
Mhm. Absolutely.
that's a little bit of a rant we don't need to get into tonight. Anything else to add about Scapa, Evan, before we open another window?
Just that I want to try more of it if it's all like this.
That doesn't seem like a recipe for success.
No.
Um, all
Well,
right,
it would be if their official bottlings were like that. That's for sure.
that's true. Well, and yeah, they're not the most exciting. There have been some interesting ones released under their distillery, like
Yeah.
their distillery visitor center range. But again, fairly hard to come by, not commonly available. So behind door number four, day number four, the Canadian Club Chronicles 41-year-old, which, if I'm not mistaken, Evan, comes from a very remarkable vintage, as
Yeah.
do a lot of these 40-something Canadian clubs.
Absolutely. And that vintage is 1977.
No, isn't it 78?
I think it's 77. I could be wrong.
Oh, that's bad news. We don't want to hear
Yeah.
that.
Terribly disappointing, isn't it? Um, so yeah, I believe it is, unless I'm wrong, it is 1977 that most of this or all of this stock was laid down in from ex-bourbon barrels, all corn whiskey. Uh, and I don't know, I want to see what you think about this one because I was relatively shocked when I did my tasting notes for this one. I think the time, so this was first released in 2018. near the end of 2018. So it's essentially been 7 years in the bottle at this
Hmm.
point. And I think it has benefited from that personally.
It's got a little bit of old bottle effect.
Potentially. Like
Yeah.
it still shows like a grain whiskey as you would expect, but I think I'd love to go back and taste it again 7 years ago and then taste it next to this 7 years later because I feel this is better.
It's got a note that I can only describe as vanilla icing flavored, like floor cleaner. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Or lighter
Like,
fluid. Yep.
well, the lighter fluid is a good one. I like that. Maybe a
Yeah.
little Zippo. It
It's
does remind me of when I got my
yep.
first Zippo
It's
back in the
kind of
days.
going into like a slight almost white rum territory with that lighter fluid note for me.
Yeah. Thanks for rubbing it in, Jeff. I could have sworn one of the 40 somethings, maybe the first one was from 78. Maybe it
They're all
was.
from 77,
That's
all
really
from the same
unfortunate.
parcel.
It's
Yeah.
very sad.
They did hold some of those that back apparently though too, because so there's still a chance we might see a 50-year-old come 20,
What?
28. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well, it
Shocking,
did
isn't it?
become almost a bit of a running joke after a while that like Canadian
Yep.
Club, like we've got a big announcement. We're announcing an exciting new whiskey tomorrow, and it's like, is it 1 year older than the one you released the last
Last
five
year.
years?
Yeah.
And it was. Yeah, I mean, the more I knows this, the more enjoyable it is. It's very decadent. I'm getting some notes of
Mhm.
marzipan now, soft fruits, like a bit of citrus and melon.
Yeah. It's got a touch of like pineapple milkshake,
Mhm.
even for me right now.
I think it like the palate reminds me of like the hard candies that would be in your grandmother's candy dish when you
Mhm.
were a child.
Yep.
The ones that like you kind of have to get a knife out to like pry apart from the others because in humidity and out of the wrappers they would start to stick together.
Yep. Yeah. Not like there's some grain whiskeys even out there from Scotland that are more complex than this, but
Hmm.
it's really well put together. And I remember liking this one or thinking it was okay when it first came out, but it didn't show this well.
I don't think any of them are bad. They just weren't, I mean, they were cool in that they were old. They were the old, like
Yep.
succinctly, one after the other, they were the oldest
Mm.
Canadian whiskeys ever bottled.
Yep.
Um, And it's a fairly clean profile. It's fairly safe. There's no rough edges to it. I mean, like a lot of grain whiskeys, it's got this faint medicinal note, but after 41 years, it's really blown off. It's like just tons of artificial hard candy fruit flavors is what I can think of with this on the palate.
Yeah. Agreed. So one thing that still bugs me about Canadian Club is that they still haven't updated their website and they have a picture of pot stills when talking about how like historic the brand is and the pot stills it says since 1858. Well, actually share this.
Yeah.
This is taken directly from the Canadian Club .com website right here. This is Ardmore Distillery that they have a picture of right here when talking about Canadian Club. No
Yeah.
idea why, because I'm pretty sure Ardmore has nothing to do with the making of Canadian Club, just owned by the same company.
Hmm. Well, not anymore. Well, I guess, yeah, no, it is. You're right. It is owned by the
Yep,
same company.
still Suntory.
Well, yeah. It's the old Beam folks, though.
Yep,
That's who I blame. The ones that the
probably.
Japanese foolishly put in charge of some of Scotland's finest distilleries, only
Definitely
to
very little attention to detail.
only to realize 10 years later what a disastrous mistake that was.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how they finally stripped the Beam name from everything too.
Hmm.
It's all Suntory Global.
Yeah. You know, Evan, it's not the world's most complex whiskey, but it's
Mhm.
very drinkable. 45%. I mean, I don't know that I would want it much hotter than that. I don't know that it would be better. Like this is just a very crushable, drinkable, easy sipping whiskey with like no flaws or rough edges to it.
Mhm. Shall we on to number five?
Yeah, let's move on to the last one, and then we'll go back through, have a little bit of a speed round, see
Mhm.
how things have changed. So, man, the one thing about not having the one thing about not having an image on the box laid on top of it is that you have to be a little careful opening the windows that you don't take the whole box with you. But
That's right.
we were trying to be more frugal and more environmentally friendly with this one. So I suppose there's
Yeah,
trade-offs
my
to be had.
5 days in, my box already looks like a just like destitute Christmas
Well,
present.
J Evan, you still have small children.
Yeah.
Mine are grown up and moved out, so I've managed to keep mine in a little bit better shape so far here. Trying to be gentle opening each window. We're gonna finish the lineup tonight, and we are gonna go back and do a speed round with the Ardnahoe Infinite Lock,
Hmm.
uh, which was like a short-term exclusive for us at Kensington Wine Market. Someone's excited here. We've got an Isla whiskey finally for them to taste through tonight. Evan, did we even put that Canadian Club up on the screen? Did you put that up?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
Except for
okay.
that showing the one
Well,
Ardmore still.
just so you can't say we didn't, I'll
Hmm.
just pop that up on the screen there for a moment and put a link to it in the chat. Uh, and if you're wondering why it's on sale, I think that has to do with like the fact that they must be acquiring some of this stock from other provinces where it didn't sell. And
Yeah.
Alberta's kind of the dumping ground. If things don't sell in other markets, companies will put them here and put them on sale, and then we'll buy them. Because if it seems to me the original retail on the first batch of 41 was something like $400. And
Yeah,
this
it
other
was near
one,
that.
yeah, this other one came in more cheaply because we sold out of the original 41s that came into Alberta years ago. It magically reappeared, let's say 4 or 5 months ago, and then they've put it on sale. So, uh, and it was already a lower price. So anyway, if you're wondering why it's on sale, it's not because we're trying to get rid of it. It's because we got a great price on it. We're passing that on.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Ardnahoe Distillery, our second Ardnahoe bottling to end up in a calendar. We had the first release of Ardnahoe in the 2024
Oh,
calendar last year. And uh, because I wrote about Ardnahoe so much on that one, I pretty much just talked about other Isla distilleries and where we're at on Isla and distillery building for the rest of the blog post for this one.
Port Tintruin gonna open early next year,
Finally, along with another one called Lagan Bay, most likely,
which is the one that's owned by Ian McLeod, right? The
and the Isla Boys, yep.
Yeah, and the Isla Boys. So
And then eventually, potentially in 2027, Pernod Ricard will have their first Isla distillery.
I don't know why they don't just buy Ardnahoe. I
Yeah,
mean,
yep.
without, telling tales outside of school, the rumor for the last 2 years has been that Hunter Lang built the distillery to sell it in the first place.
Oh,
And
really?
I think, as we all know, it's opening a distillery, especially in the current environment today, is a bit of a difficult proposition. Some might argue, myself included, that there's too many distilleries in Scotland and that the market can't sustain them. And it seems to me it would be much wiser to wait until somebody runs out of money and then buy them out. But I suppose
Yeah,
that's
and
not as romantic.
well, and speaking of romanticism, like everybody romanticizes getting another distillery up on Isla, which is, and it's kind of like putting a distillery in Campbelltown, which is the other hot place right now, it seems like,
Mhm.
where it sounds great on paper, and then you get into the logistics of everything with how remote it is. You have to
Mhm.
ship everything over and then ship everything back. All the ingredients for everything except for the peat, essentially. If you have floor maltings, if you don't have floor maltings, you have to get the peated malt from the mainland even now because you can't get it from Port Ellen. The cost to make whiskey would be quite a bit higher just to have it on Isla versus the mainland.
Well, and Isla is overcrowded. There's not
Yep.
enough housing. I believe when we last chatted with Ollie and he was telling us about Port Tintruan that Elixir Distillers is building, I believe they had to build housing for all their employees
Yep. Yeah,
because
they're going back to the old style of
yeah,
distillery housing. Yep.
which in some ways is kind of charming because if you go to
Hmm.
Isla or even places like Tormore Distillery in the Space Side, you can see remnants of the villages that these companies owned and operated for their employees right into the 1960s. And yeah, in a place like Isla, a lot of it is farmland, some of it is peatland, which is protected. So it's not as easy as it once was to just simply build a distillery. And it's an island.
Hmm.
There's a limited amount of space there. There's a limited amount of ferry service. And the ferry service is struggling there routinely. So, Evan, what can you tell us about Infinite Loch?
Yeah, so uh Ardnahoe, I think, was specifically built with sherry casks in mind in a lot of ways. Long line arms, wood worm tubs, and the idea was that it would sort of stand up to aging in sherry casks relatively well. That might not be like the crazy new sherry season casks that we see all the time, where 15 liters of sherry is left in it, and it's going to affect the whiskey in the same way. But sherry casks, nonetheless, I think this is a combination of sherry hogsheads and refill casks or ex-bourbon casks, if I remember correctly. Bottled at 50% alcohol, which is great, and honestly, really well put together. Just a really good Isla dram for me.
Mhm. Yeah, the nose on this, I think partly because we've had some very rich, very intense whiskeys. I find the nose on this a little bit shy. Surprisingly, it's quite creamy, and I'm getting more vanilla than I am
Yeah,
typical sherry notes on the nose. When you get to the palate, though, there's this really soft, delicate peat, which is quite nice, quite balanced. Um, the sherry notes are very subtle, a little bit of candied fruit, a little bit of soft leather. Um, but yeah, very easy drinking whiskey. You know, Evan, if you
yeah,
were to guess blind, if someone were to put this in front of you and you were to guess blind, what other Isla whiskey might you have mistaken this for?
that's a good question. I'm kind of thinking Lagavulin, personally. Like it's got some shellfish notes and stuff like that. It's kind of like the smoke shows in a similar fashion to what I
Mhm.
see from Lagavulin 16 and the like.
Mhm.
I don't know how to explain it more than that, but yeah, how about yourself?
Well, lots of people in the chat saying Kalila. You know,
Yeah,
my first instinct on my first sip was to say Ardbeg, partly because I found the peat was a bit ashier and softer, and it's not medicinal. But the more I get into it, the more this makes me think of Kilholman, because Kilholman's got
cool.
that really barley forward profile. It's not quite as citrusy as Kilholman,
Yeah,
but I mean, that to me would be the closest approximation. The peat seems like a fairly comparable level of peat on the
yeah.
palate. And just that maltiness, I think because we're used to drinking Kilholman under 10 years of age. Um, I think that maltiness kind of resonates for me.
Yeah, lots of people saying Kalila and Ardbeg. I like the Kilholman take on that. And the one thing that I think it has that Kilholman doesn't is a little bit more minerality coming
Mhm.
through on the palate. Um, a little bit saltier as well for me, but definite stylistic similarities when it comes to the malt itself.
So I remember when they built Ardnahoe. I mean, I was kind of excited about it. Evan, we visited it before it had legal whiskey. We went
Yeah,
to Lag, and I remember being impressed. It was a beautiful building. They've got a wonderful view, looks across to Jura. I thought their spirit was good, but I didn't think it was great, and it didn't impress me as much
Mhm.
as lag. And I think the interesting thing is like, 5 years on or whatever it is, 6 years on from that trip we made in 2019, Ardnahoe, like every bottling they've put out so far has been pretty impressive. Like
Yeah,
they've not
agreed.
yet put out a bad bottling. And I think I kind of didn't give them a benefit of the doubt because I sort of questioned their motives. I
Mhm.
know there was some grumblings on the island with the locals that a lot of the locals weren't happy with the distillery and with the owners. But ultimately, like, what is it now? 8 years on or so,
Yep.
9 years on from the distillery founding, they've got a lovely whiskey.
Yep, they do. I mean, it's peated, so it's showing well
Hmm.
at a younger age. Peated whiskey tends to be very forgiving when it's young as well.
Hmm.
But it's again pretty well rounded for me. There's not a whole lot of like
Hmm.
jagged, rough, youthful notes. Everything profile wise tends to be pretty calm and gets along with each other. So
Yeah. Well, we're gonna do our speed round in a moment here.
mhm.
Partly because my daughter and her fiance and their dog just arrived, so the dog tagon is about to go into effect in my home. The upstairs is already starting to shake. Uh, but I do want to comment, Evan. Did you update the bingo card for tonight's tasting, or is there a new bingo
No,
card?
no, I might if I find time somehow, I should do a more calendar centric bingo card.
We have not yet had, I think, anyone declare bingo yet,
Yeah,
and maybe we should kind of outsource this because we're both very busy, very
yeah,
important people, Evan, as everyone knows,
absolutely.
struggling to find time to do such things. Perhaps we should crowdsource this to our followers here, people watching the tasting. Maybe they'd like to have a crack. Oh, hi, Jerry. Hi. Maybe they'd like to have a crack at filling in
Yeah.
some new squares on the bingo card that we might inadvertently trip on.
Yeah. If like I'm fine if someone wants to champion that and take it on and just send me one to put on the put in the tasting link, or if you want to just send me your bingo squares and I'll try and integrate those into what we have and sort of refresh the one that's on up right now.
And I'd say the only ground rule to set there is just don't make it anything like completely offensive, but
Yeah.
we're okay. Like, you're not going to hurt my feelings. If we have mannerisms that we're maybe not aware of,
Yep.
quirks that come up, feel free to send them. Just,
Yeah.
um,
Borderline offensive is fine.
yeah,
Just
just
not
not, just
like
don't
full on
cross the
offensive.
line. We all
Yeah.
know there's a line there somewhere. Try to stay on the right side of it. So, shall we go back to the beginning and go through one more time?
Yes, let's.
All right.
Okay, back to number one, which was Mistletoe and Whiskey, SMWS 1.300.
I like how this has settled down a little bit. It's not
Yeah.
as over the top as it was when we were first there.
Yeah, it's still really toasty and sort of roasty on the nose, but just so much like boozy Christmas cake notes for
Mhm.
me and just a touch of pine needles in the back, that herbaceous note coming through right now.
Yeah. The palate's still got a bit of that rye note to me, quite spicy,
Mhm.
but it's now morphing into like Michter's bourbon. Like, and the reason I say Michter's bourbon because I don't hold most other bourbons in high regard, but I do hold Michter's in high regard. And
That's right.
this reminds me a little bit of sour mash Michter's on the palate now.
Very cool. Yeah, there is a touch of like a really dry blue cheese note on
Yeah,
the finish there for me on the tongue.
yeah. But nice note of sherry in there.
Mhm.
Nice distillate. I mean, what are we talking ABV here? 57.5. No rough edges. That's a great whiskey. There's not a lot of these left. I want to say about 12 to 14 of them coming next week that are not yet spoken for. They will not last long.
Mhm.
Uh, GlenAllachie 15-year, Evan. How's this faring?
That for me, that coffee grounds note is still just all over the place on the nose, really dark chocolate driven. Still has a little bit of that fudgy note as well, some dried fruits.
Hmm.
Jeff says we have one less SMWS 1.300 now.
The palate on this, still kind of fudgy, chocolatey, some nice sherry tones. It's got a good balance to it. I think it's nice that this is now a whiskey that we have consistently available in
Absolutely.
market. It's something that you can go back to, and you don't have to worry about buying it because it's going to be sold out for a year. Um, yeah, this is a great kind of benchmark whiskey, like the Benromic 15, like,
Mhm.
well, Bowmore 18. I think those are some of my
Yep.
go-tos. And I think this one could easily, Craigellachie 13, fit
Yep.
into that pantheon.
hmm One thing that surprised me in this lineup, I was really worried with having the GlenDronach or sorry, the GlenAllachie right after the SMWS bottling, especially once we figured out how sherried it was. But um, it actually doesn't completely fall apart. It holds up at 46% alcohol. Probably could have gone before the SMWS bottling if we were doing a proper tasting, but it doesn't get completely lost with a single cast before it.
Hmm.
Back to the Gordon Fale Scapa.
Indeed. And I'm just quickly finishing the poll, so that's ready to roll. Yeah,
Uh, Buttered cinnamon and raisin toast right now for me.
it's got a nice kind of eat more candy bar note to it.
Yeah,
And then the other one is, I think we brought this up in a tasting recently, those kind of butter, sugar, oatmeal things that Crystal makes for the whiskey festivals.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know what those are called. They're not healthy, but they
yeah.
taste good.
Crack. I think they're just called crack.
They're just called crack. They're called
Yeah.
Baker's crack.
Mhm.
And there's like a little bit of a like a berry eau de vie on this, like a raspberry or a cherry eau de vie.
Mhm. Yeah, almost going into like Kirsch.
Hmm. Palate on that's elegant, really
Yeah,
soft cherry, a mix of candied fruits. But yeah, for me now, it's starting to really move into that tropical realm.
yeah,
Mango, papaya, pineapple.
yeah. A
That's
touch
great.
of peaches and cream as well for me. Really good
Yeah.
stuff.
And waxy. You mean that waxy note that you mentioned previously?
Mhm.
Oh, Canadian Club 41 year.
Yeah,
I don't think we're allowed to talk about her syrup anymore. So we'll just say golden syrup. We don't
yeah,
we don't talk about the ant.
yeah. Which somehow kind of seems like revisionist history in some ways, but
Yeah. I don't know. I just want to be respectful of all. So we'll just say pancake syrup as opposed
yeah,
to maple syrup. Corn syrup, maybe.
big time corn syrup. Yeah,
Like butter flavored corn syrup.
yeah. Even going into just like caramel popcorn on the
What?
nose.
This is going full pancake breakfast for me because
Yeah.
I'm even getting like those pork sausage links and
Mhm.
industrial box flapjacks. As a connoisseur of homemade pancakes, this is not a
Yep.
pancake whiskey. This is a Stampede breakfast flapjack whiskey.
Still does have some of that sort of like fainty rum note on the nose as well.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely on the palate, that sort of Demerara corn syrup whiskey note
Yep.
coming through. A bit of citrus, a bit of melon. It's not
Yep.
overly complex, but man, this is crushable. And
Yeah. Very.
you know, I talked about this in a private tasting I did last night. Uh, One of the things that changed my mind to adding ice to whiskey, I still think it's wrong. I still think that
Mhm.
it has a deleterious effect on a good whiskey. But with something like this on a hot day, having like a couple of ounces of it, a bartender's block ice cube in a great big brandy snifter or a Chardonnay glass would be like,
Yep.
this would be so drinkable. It would be crushable.
Yep. Yeah. You could pass that to John Glazer and you'd be a happy man.
And I think people wouldn't judge you because they would just assume it was white wine and they'd be like, yeah, they're fine.
Yeah.
It's just a white wine drinker on a hot day.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, tasty. Okay.
Hmm.
I mean, the fruit esters in that are interesting because
Yeah.
it is very rum-like. I would say in some ways it's more rum-like than it is whiskey-like.
Hmm.
Hi again,
Yeah,
Jerry.
maybe like just again going into not quite NGS territory for that whatever the distillate was.
Yeah. All right. Now we're on to the Ardmore or the Ardnahoe. That was a
Yeah,
bit of a Freudian slip, Evan,
that's right.
because it's changed even in the 5
Yeah.
minutes since we were last on it. It is now much more barnyardy than it was when we were
It's
first there.
it's got like a smoky peanut butter
Yeah.
note for me right now.
Jerry, what are you doing? Sorry, excuse me.
No
Jerry,
worries.
hey guys, can you get Jerry? Sorry, daughter's dog. I'm worried he's gonna mark the little Christmas tree down here.
Really sounds like Jerry should be called Kramer and not Jerry.
Well, he doesn't want to get uromycetitis poisoning,
Hmm.
which I believe was Kramer's big concern, and the dog's
Yeah.
run is in effect as well. Just no rounding out on this. I mean, it's a young whiskey. It's not surprising. It's got
Mhm.
this kind of very barley forward, wet hay, maybe a bit of manure barnyardiness that has sort of
Yeah.
developed on it.
A little bit of like chalk powder and chalk dust in there as well now, minerality wise.
But I still like it a lot more than I would like 5-year-old Ardmore.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's the hard edge that minerality that comes into play there.
Yeah.
That keeps it from being that sort of like really fleshy, sweet style that you get from Ardmore.
It's juicy on the palate, ashy, malty. I mean, it definitely drinks way above its age, which is presumed to be 5 or 6 years. I
Mhm.
think it shows quite well. Well, this is a tough one, Evan. I don't know. I'm gonna need a couple of minutes here, a minute or two to figure out what my favorites are.
Well,
Where are
should we
you
start the
at?
poll and we
Yeah,
can
we'll
banter
start
back
the
and forth
poll.
here?
So there's no cheeky third question. I didn't realize Evan had not had time to create a poll, but I did create one on the fly.
Yeah,
Um, I can, Evan, champion the cheeky third question on the next poll in five
sounds
days'
good.
time.
Well, maybe I'll find my energy and get a fourth one in there then too. But you go first on that one. Um, for my top two, I am going to pick the G&M Scapa. That's my number one. I just think that's a great
Mhm.
dram, super balanced. Just again makes me want to discover what else Scapa can do. And then my number two is going to be the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society bottle. Not too much of a surprise that I'm going for cast strength on both, but I liked that take on Glen Farkless as GlenAllachie almost for that one, and it worked really well for
as
me.
as Michter's sour mash.
Hmm. Where have you ended up?
Evan, I think this is that rarest of occasions where you and I are synced right up.
Oof.
And we joke, but this almost never happens. Evan, I
Yeah,
think, almost goes out of his way to pick
absolutely.
a favorite
When I go
whiskey,
second, it's never going to be the same.
yeah, that he knows I'm not gonna like. Um, but yeah, I think that Scapa for me was was the winner tonight. I think that showed the best.
Yeah.
Uh, the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society one is a worthy second. I think though I'd be very hard pressed to pick a third. And the reason for that is there's things I like about all three in very different ways. I think that Ardnahoe for such a young whiskey has a great profile to it. I think it's got great
Yep.
promise. I can't wait to see it as we did with young Kilholman. I can't wait to see it
Hmm.
in 10, 15 years, 20 years time to see how it develops. The Canadian Club for 41-year-old 100% corn Canadian whiskey, it's very drinkable. I mean,
Yep.
if someone poured me that on a hot day, I would be pretty happy to sit and just sip it on a patio. And I think that GlenAllachie 15 for like a flagship whiskey for that range is a
Yeah.
really solid release.
Yeah, like you were saying, one of the best 15 official
Mhm,
bottlings out there.
mhm. All right. Well, we're going to give you about 30 seconds if you haven't voted to place your vote, and then we're going to share the results. I don't know
Yeah.
if there were any final questions that we missed. I know there was a light of comments in the chat, which is awesome.
Mhm.
Um, Adam hates to say it, but something would be good in eggnog. I'd love to know which one that is. Maybe the Canadian Club 41.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's the most rum-like, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, Jackie and David saying good job on the blogs, Evan. Always nice to
Thank
read
you.
daily in anticipation of our Zooms. I went back through the nerdy inventory blogs, super fun to reminisce where the whiskey calendars all started. I mean, I think one of the things that I would say to that is um, just how grateful we are that people are continuing to do this with us more than a
Yeah.
decade after we started. And especially since we switched to the smaller format, which we don't do because we want to, but this is the smallest we're legally allowed to fill that allows us to take, our own destiny into our hands and pick the whiskeys we want to pour rather than the
Yeah.
ones that we can get in 50 mils because it became shockingly hard to get good whiskeys in that 50 mil format.
Yeah. I don't think we can say enough about like the calendar has always been curated, but the amount of curation that goes into it and
Mhm,
the discussion and the wish lists that we create for what we want to have in the calendar
mhm,
and the things that we have throughout the year that stick in the back of our mind for, oh yeah, we got to add that. It is a year-long process at this point. The stuff, the timing and the work it begins in earnest usually around July or August. But um,
mhm,
having the ability to put in pretty much exactly what we want in these things and
mhm,
having everybody still enjoy it is it's pretty wonderful.
mhm. I I do want to say there's some other great notes in there. I want to thank like some of you saying like it doesn't feel like Christmas until the Advent tastings.
Yeah.
How many people love taking part in doing this? And so certainly we're really, really grateful for all of that. Jeff feels bad for whoever has to pour all of them. I mean, Evan, let's be honest, Sammy and Harmony probably did
Oh, Gilvin's
75
rook.
to
Yeah.
80% of this. Uh,
Yeah.
Hannah, who is like a seasonal helper for us, she probably did the rest.
Yeah.
But I mean, it becomes a team effort. Like the staff on the floor end up doing the labeling and putting the seal on. But to a certain extent, we've got it down to a science in terms of pouring it. But yeah, it is a lot of work, but it's something we love doing because it also gives us a chance to connect
Yeah.
with people and share that
Absolutely.
moment.
It's always a group effort with KWM with things like this. And I mean, it takes probably three of us to screw in a light bulb, but I think it took five of us to tighten the cap on whiskey number one there.
Well, we're gonna have to talk to Marty about that because man, his grip strength is.
That's right.
I mean, for a man
Marty.
who's
Yeah,
closer to 60 than not,
I
he's
know.
he's got a very
Yeah.
firm grip.
Yeah. Yeah. Have
It
some
has to be
sympathy for the
said.
rest of us,
All right,
Marty.
well, let's end the poll. We'll share the results here. Uh, so, favorite whiskey tonight. This is interesting. Uh, it edged out everything else in a very close vote, but the Scotch Malt Whisky Society 1.300 Mistletoe and Whiskey is the favorite whiskey tonight. Just behind by one vote, the Gordon MacPhail Scapa 2000, and then Ardnahoe Infinite Loch came in third. Everything got a vote first round, so I think that's great. That speaks well
Yeah.
to the selection and to the choices here. And then same thing, round two. Everything got at least a
Yeah.
vote. The Scapa surged to the front. Um, what is it? Infinite Lock came in third, second, and GlenAllachie 15 and third. So I mean that's phenomenal. I mean, four of the whiskeys
Yeah.
in solid contention to be the overall favorite tonight based on the votes. So that's incredible. Well, listen, everyone. I want to thank you for taking time out of your Friday night to join us and do a little
Yeah.
tasting. Thank you, Evan, for all the work you do on the blog posts. Thank you to Natalia for her social media posts every day, and obviously to the staff for getting this thing pulled together. And most importantly, to all of you who are joining us on this journey every year. Until we see you in 5 days, which is what, Evan? Is it Wednesday next?
Yeah, I think it is a Wednesday. So
Yeah. So I see
Sunday or
someone
Saturday,
nodding.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Tuesday or Wednesday?
Tuesday.
I think it's a Tuesday.
Is it Tuesday? Let's see. No, it's Wednesday, Evan. It's
Oh,
Wednesday.
perfect.
Which reminds me, I
And
have something to talk to you about Tuesday, which is unrelated to this. But
okay,
yeah.
sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Enjoy the rest of the drams. And thanks for taking part in tonight's tasting.
Yeah. Cheers, everybody. See you around.